Hello, so this is lesson 3 in food preparation and nutrition, and in this lesson we're going to be making a pasta bake product. So just to remind you, aprons on, hair tied back, sleeves rolled up, hands washed with hot soapy water. I'm going to be putting the gloves on, as I said to you before, because I'm wearing nail varnish, and you shouldn't have your nails uncovered if you've got nail varnish on. You don't need to do this. So for today, for our pasta bake, you're going to need some pasta. It can be any type of pasta shapes, just not the long spaghetti, so any other type of pasta shapes is fine. I have got here 130 grams of the pasta shapes. You're going to need an onion. You can either have a white onion or a red onion, and I'm going to show you how to prepare one of those in a second. A tin of chopped tomatoes. We're going to need some salt and pepper, some Italian herbs, some tomato puree, a meat or vegetable protein of your choice. So I'm going with tuna. You could go with ham. You could have cooked chicken. If you've got any questions on that, let me know and I'll give you some advice. Then I'm going to pop into mine 3 vegetables. So I'm going with my courgette, which I have diced up, as I've shown you before, with the bridge and claw technique. Some strips of some pepper and some frozen sweet corn. We're going to be using some grated hard cheese. So again, we've gone with a mild cheddar here. A tiny amount, just half a teaspoon of granulated sugar. That just balances the tomato flavours when we're cooking. And you're going to need a saucepan. The saucepan is half to 3/4 full of water, depending on the size of the saucepan. Another can be a frying pan, or it could be a saucepan again, and this one's actually already got a tablespoon of oil in. And you're also going to need an oven-proof dish. Once your pasta bake is assembled, it's going to go into the oven. So before I start preparing my vegetables, I'm actually going to put this saucepan onto the heat so that it starts to boil. The water must be boiling before we put the pasta in, so I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so I've set that to a medium-high heat. I'm just going to move my saucepan out of the way. I'm not going to put the heat on here because I'm not ready for it yet. It's got oil in, and it actually could cause a house fire if you heat oil up and leave it on its own. Okay, so that one's over there, but it's not heated up. Just going to move my oven-proof dish to one side. I'm going to show you how to start off with the onion. So I'm going to show you with the white onion, okay? So as I talked before about topping and tailing, my advice to you is to cut the top off the onion, but do not cut the tail off. The reason for this is the smell that makes your eyes water is much stronger when you cut through the bottom section of the onion. So it's always a good advice not to do that. I just need to get myself out a waste bowl. Okay, so I'm going to hold my knife, keep my finger pressing along the edge of the knife, okay? Just cut the top off, okay? And then I'm actually going to use that to help me peel. A little bit more tricky in gloves, but not impossible. Okay. And now I'm going to cut into my onion. So I'm going to hold my hands in my bridge hold, and I'm going to cut down into my onion this way, okay? So we've now got these sections cut here. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and I'm going to cut down in the same way. It gets a little bit more tricky now because you've got those cuts. So you want to move your hands into your claw technique. And now what I'm going to do is turn my onion on its side, okay? Hold all of the top of the onion, and then as I cut down, I'm going to have all of these lots of little sections, okay? Just going to put this one to one side because there's one that I have prepared earlier. Okay, so I've now got my diced up onion. I've got my other vegetables. I've actually put into here, as well as my half teaspoon of sugar, I've actually got a tablespoon of tomato puree, so that one's ready to go. They're going to go in at the same time. I'm now also going to add some Italian herbs, and I'm going to use a tablespoon of the Italian herbs as well. So I'm just going to measure this out. Doesn't matter if a few extra go in, that's fine. My salt and pepper, I'm going to add a couple of grinds when we get going. So we've already put the oil into the pan, that's ready to go. take our pasta over so we can add that to the saucepan when that gets to boiling. And now I'm going to move all of my ingredients over. The last thing I'm going to do before I do that is actually prepare my cheese. So just a reminder for when you come to grating the cheese, to actually hold the cheese in your palm and keep your hands quite flat so that you don't end up grating any of your knuckles, because that's A, really painful, but B, quite unhygienic. Don't want bits of your knuckle going into your cheese. Okay, so that's all my cheese ready. That's going to go on the top of my pasta bake when I've done. So I'm now going to move us over to the hob. Okay, so as we can see, the water's starting to boil now. So what I'm going to do is really carefully, and again, ask somebody who's got some more experience with cooking to help you with this, put my pasta in. It's a really good tip, when it's gone in, it will stick to the bottom, so just give it a stir to start with, just to loosen it off. And then I'm going to put my lid back on. Going to turn my heat down ever so slightly, and I'm going to just keep checking on my pasta so that it doesn't bubble over. Okay, so we've turned the heat on under the oil, and we're going to count to 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That gives the oil a chance to heat up. I'm now going to put just one piece of onion in, and what we're hoping to see, or wanting to see, is that we get some bubbles forming around the edge of the onion, and that tells us that the pan and the oil is hot enough to add the rest of the onion. If we added the rest of the onion before it was hot enough, the onion would absorb all of the oil and it would actually taste quite greasy, so we don't want that. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a stir around, and this is why it's really important to have all of your ingredients prepared and close to hand so that you're not having to go off. Okay, I'm just going to check on my pasta. Okay, and my pasta feels like it's coming really soft, so I'm just going to turn that down, turn that off, okay, and actually move that one off the heat. That's ready to go. Once I finish making my sauce, I'll then drain that off. So my onions are starting to brown, so that's perfect. What I'm going to do now is add my other vegetables in as well. And I'm going to stir these around. Just going to turn my heat down. It's getting a little bit loud. And give my other vegetables a chance, particularly the courgettes, to start to cook and to start to get some colour onto them. Okay. After they've had maybe a minute or two, I'm then going to add in my tin of tomatoes. Quite quick, all of these additions, and also my mixed herbs, my sugar and my tomato puree. Give all of these a stir together. So, as I said before, you could add animal source protein, so you could add fish, maybe some tuna, you could add a meat, maybe some cooked chicken, or potentially some cooked pork, maybe some ham. If there's something else you're not sure whether you could add it, just send me a message and I can check that out for you. So I'm just going to add into here my tuna. Okay, so that's what I've decided to use today. Once the tuna's gone in, I can now move on to actually draining my pasta. This is another one of the jobs where you might need to ask somebody for some assistance because the boiling water can be really dangerous. So you must be super careful. So I'm happy with this, everything's mixed well together. I've turned my heat down and that's just going to start to cook through while I'm preparing my pasta. Okay, so I have drained my pasta off and it's in the colander now. There's no water left in here, so I'm going to just tip this into my sauce and then stir the two things together, making sure that the pasta is coated in all of the tomato-based sauce. Then the final thing we need to do before we transfer it over is a grind of pepper and then a little bit of salt. Again, stir these things together. Move my colander out of the way, and now I'm ready to pop this, transfer this over into my heat-proof dish. Turn all of the heat off. Now this is a bit of a balancing act. This is when you see if you measured out too much pasta. Probably got enough here for 2 portions actually. So, happy with that. Put that to one side. So I've got here my pasta bake. It just needs to have some cheese on the top. Okay, and now this is ready to go into the oven, and it needs to go into the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes. I would suggest you check it after 10 minutes. You want the cheese on the top to have melted, but it's down to your personal taste how much you want it to be cooked. I like the cheese to be quite really well melted, and maybe some of the top bits of the pasta to go like a bit more crunchy, but it's all down to personal preference. So as we have done before, oven gloves on and then pop this into the oven. Okay, so I've preheated the oven. Again, we've used 180 degrees in a fan assisted oven. Oven gloves on, and then I'm going to pop my pasta bake. Okay, and I'm just going to set my timer 10 minutes in the first instance. Check it after 10 minutes, and if you're happy with that, take it out, and if you're not happy, leave it a little bit longer, but keep checking on it. Okay, so just about to check on my pasta bake. Oven gloves back on. Okay, so I'm really happy with the way this one's turned out. I actually made two. From the amount that I used. So for 2 individual portions, that was 130 grams of the dried pasta, half an onion and a tin of tomatoes. So if you wanted to do just a single portion, 65 grams of pasta, half a tin of tomatoes, and then half of the other ingredients. That's all written down on the sheets in your booklets, but I will post some information on the video as well. Hopefully you enjoy this. After you've made it, again, if you can take a picture of it and send it back to me so I can mark that for your assignments. Ask the other people in your house whether they've enjoyed it. If you could improve it in any way, maybe change some of the different ingredients, make it another time, test it out, see if that was better. That would be amazing. Thanks very much, and I'll see you again next time.